Okay, so I'm continuing from last time where Deku, Ida, Uraraka, and Bakugo had finished their match. And I'll say that the other matches go exactly to canon. Now, I'm going to change some stuff up here from how Deku's actual power works and say that other than the actual fact that he's able to manifest stuff out of his body, that it's not a madness effect that he has, it's an illusion effect, like a mirage, right? Like when people are getting attached to his by his like a corruption stuff, it gives them kind of like an illusion effect where it sits dormant in them until he activates it, and he can make them see stuff, almost like Kami can, like with her quirk. And so other than that, he also he gains power from negative emotions. He's not able to control them. I'm changing that fact. He's not able to control people, but he's able to feed off of emotions, almost like a negative energy sponge. He sucks the energy out of them, kind of like just feeds off of it, gives him power. So let's see. Something I forgot to mention last time was his actual costume. Now, I'm going to say that his actual costume is actually similar to canon. The only difference is that he has he actually has the like his in canon like up to season 4 kind of outfit. The only difference being that like some other colors are changed around a bit, like for the most part, the actual silver on his mouth brace is going to be changed to black, and his gloves are going to have like a little hole in the palm, right? So that whenever he's actually letting out the quirk, to manifest weapons, it manifests better from the holes in his palms. And all the stuff on his feet, on his shoes, like the bracers, the healed souls or whatever, it's not silver, it's black. Kind of just kind of bear with me here. I like the dark aesthetic a lot. So continuing on, all the fights they go to canon and all that, but now we're going to skip to the next day they uh where they go to the USJ, the unforeseen simulation joint. And on the way there, all the students are talking. You know, they're chatting about who has the strongest quirk and all that. And Deku, he chimes in and says that if they're referring to overall strength, like power output, it's between him, Todoroki, and Bakugo. If they're talking about like the versatility, like it's gonna be Momo, because you know she's able to really kind of give you anything you need. Like if you're in need of some kind of medicine, she'll give it to you. But if if and he says that if they're talking about like overall like defensive, like it's gonna obviously go to Kirishima, mainly for the fact that this man is literally just a walking tank. So the others, they don't fully understand exactly what Deku's quirk is. And even Sue kind of points out that his quirk seems a bit strange, I guess you could say. And he was kind of really not looking forward to this part because of the fact that whenever he was in school, a lot of people like ridiculed him for his quirk. But Uraraka, she puts her hand on his shoulder and she encourages him, you know, like gives him the sign like, No matter what happens, you still got me. I got your back. So he starts to explain his quirk. And they're not exactly, what's the word? Enthusiastic. They're kinda very freaked out by the fact that he literally has a corruption quirk, which to them, that just sounds like asking for trouble. But Uraraka, she stands up for him and says that they don't understand the kind of person he is, in that he would never use his quirk for evil. Which some people do come around, like, let's see, like Kirishima, Sue. There's Ida. Even though Ida is kind of like he still kind of like does take respect for the fact that like Deku does obviously show the heart of a hero and does like kind of have that like sportsman attitude. Like he doesn't want to win a fight if it means like hurting the other opponent too bad. Like how he did with Bakugo. Like he literally gave Bakugo enough of a chance to try and like solve it calmly, but Bakugo just went all out and really got his butt handed to him. And Ida kind of respected that. But other than that, Momo also came over to like Deku's side of this. Todoroki, he didn't know how he felt. He was kind of on the fence. Like he didn't hate Deku, but he didn't know how he felt about Deku's quirk. But they got to the USJ, and that's my favorite part. When they got out of the bus, Hero 13 was waiting, and Uraraka, she just went wild. She started fangirling. She was like, oh my gosh, it's the Hero 13. They say that she's actually been to space. She's the coolest rescue hero ever. Freaking Deku understands exactly how it feels to kind of, meet your idol and all that stuff. Or the person you look up to. And he kind of like laughs a little bit under his breath and is just enjoying it. But from there she tells her boring speech about how freaking how quirks are dangerous, which everyone knew this. Freaking look at Bakugo. He's literally just a walking explosive. Piss him off and he'll just blow your face up. I'm surprised he hasn't literally torn Deku to shreds with these explosions, number one. Number two, I'm surprised that he hasn't gone deaf from how loud his explosions are, or even blown himself up by accident. But other than that, they all go inside and they're amazed by how amazing this facility is. Like, they're looking at like all the zones and they're just marveling at how gorgeous the place looks. And Hero 13 points out the fact that she's responsible for the entire facility and that a lot of different schools actually go to that facility to do hero training. Well, I'm not sure exactly if that's canon or not, but we'll say it's my story. It's my AU. But after she explains all the zones and exactly what they're doing, Kirishima points out that he didn't know they had fake villains. Deku looks down the stairs, and so does Mr. Aizawa. And this giant purple portal just starts opening up. And all these villains just start pouring out. Just like everywhere. And Mr. Aizawa yells to Hero 13, "Get the kids back to the bus!" And he jumps down the stairs leapfrog style, just like going at it, just throwing a scarf and bashing other people into each other by throwing them around willy nilly. Now, Deku, he wanted to do something, but he didn't know what to do at the moment. And but as they had turned around to head back to the bus like Mr. Aizawa had instructed, the portal appeared behind them and said, I'm sorry, but we can't let you escape like that. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna separate you now. And Kurogiri just starts shooting all these separate little bits out and starts trying to scoop up all the students. Deku was able to grab Uraraka and Bakugo and kind of pull them to the side a bit. But so he completely missed Deku and them, but he got like most of the other students. Bakugo didn't really thank Deku for grabbing him, but said he appreciated the assist, and then shoots off towards Kurogiri, trying to hit him. And which he actually kind of misses, but he is able to see the like a metal glint in the like kind of barely in the smog, so he kind of like propels himself almost like circularly around to kind of keep the momentum, and is able to hit Kurogiri like right in the middle. But like in an attempt to kind of like get rid of Bakugo, he does the shooting out again, and unfortunately Deku isn't able to like protect Uraraka this time, so they all get flung to like where they're supposed to be. And so Deku is on the boat with Sue and Mineta. And Mineta's kind of freaked out by Deku because of his quirk. But but they start to see that there are villains in the water. And Deku starts to kind of plan it out. You know, he starts to kind of come up with a contingency plan on how he plans to kind of deal with the situation, right? So he tells Sue that he's going to try and like manifest something to kind of like hit the water really hard, almost like air pressure. And when he does it, he wants her to grab onto him and Mineta and try and jump as far as possible towards the shore, right? And she understands the plan. She grabs Mineta by by the back of his, like, I'm not sure if that's a cape or whatever, but he grabs something like that, and she wraps her tongue around Deku. And Deku kind of manifests, like, all the corruption into his arms, and he punches, like, Sue and him jump, and he punches really hard towards the water with his corruption powers, creating a whirlpool. And Mineta, wanting to help a bit, he starts throwing the balls on his head like crazy, eventually getting a lot of the villains stuck together, and they're able to get to the shore. But when they get to the shore, it's a very, very gruesome sight. Mr. Aizawa was getting his head beaten in by the Nomu. And this didn't set well with Deku. It, in fact, made him very, very infuriated. It made him angry to see his teacher get his face bashed in like that. Now, mind you, at this time, technically, Ida was able to get out. Like in canon, but he wasn't gonna be able to get All Might very fast. So Deku knew this, but He could feel the negative energy just kind of like pouring in him. He started absorbing it, trying to create power. And he shot towards the Nomu in a rage, trying to get rid of it as fast as he could. When he launched out of the water, he yelled, "Get away from my teacher!" And he manifested as much of the corruption into his right arm, and he punched the Nomu. And it didn't do a damn thing. He said, "What the heck happened?" With the amount of corruption he has in his body, I'd say that he's up to about 30% of One for All in like equal amounts. So he put a bit of some force into it, and he wasn't expecting nothing to happen. But Shigaraki sees this and he says, "You thought you could hurt my Nomu? That easily, punk. Oh, you brats. You brats and your stupid ideals. My Nomu has shock absorption, regeneration, and super strength. You think you can defeat him like that?" And now that Deku knows exactly what kind of quirks the Nomu has, he jumps back and he starts to think of how to deal with this. And he's able to get the Nomu to get off of Aizawa, obviously. But Aizawa, he's messed up. Like, he's severely hurt. And Deku, he manifests 2 swords from his palms, right? And he starts to kind of like dual wield the swords. And he's put some of the corruption into his legs to give himself some speed. So he's zooming around the Nomu, slicing at it. But it's only creating small cuts, and they're healing really, really fast. The Nomu's trying to punch him, but he's barely missing every time. And Shigaraki, he says, "You think that cutting my Nomu will make it stop? That's not gonna work. Nomu, kill that brat." And the Nomu starts getting more serious. And Deku can feel the energy from around him start to dance in a bit. Off somewhere else, Mina is being surrounded by a couple of villains, and she's not sure how she wants to deal with them. She doesn't know what to do. So she tries to kind of control the viscosity, or exactly how much the acid burned. And she tried to fight them, but her fear was starting to get to her that they were gonna get her, obviously. But she tried her best to find them off. Eventually, they started to get too much for her, and in fear, she upped the viscosity and started shooting out acid impulsively, and it started to burn the villains. Now, the burns were not life-threatening, but they hurt like hell. And she felt bad, and her guilt started to kind of leak out, and that guilt fed into Deku. And let's just say that the negative emotions from the others, you decide how they're freaking out in some way. It started to feed into Deku as the whole place just got a lot more dense with negative energy, almost like a miasma. Deku was just absorbing it, feeding off of it, getting stronger by the minute. he upped it by about to 50%. And he started losing his mind a bit. Started losing control over his actions. Aizawa was able to become conscious enough to take away the shock absorption from the Nomu. And Deku, upping his percentage of corruption, he started moving even faster than before, just cutting and cutting and cutting. And now the Nomu no longer had the shock absorption and its healing. All it had was its strength. So it was no longer healing from these cuts anymore. It was literally just getting shredded up like a blender. It suffered cut after cut after cut after cut. And after a while, Deku lost it completely, and he started punching at it. Like he knocked it over. With like after cutting the back of its knees, and he started punching at its face, just rapidly beating it down on this damn thing. And in the corner of his eye, he saw Shigaraki start to panic a bit. And he noticed that Shigaraki was going after Aizawa. Deku flew pretty fast, and he tackled Shigaraki before he could get to Mr. Aizawa. Shigaraki was able to touch Deku's arm and was able to like decay a little bit off of his arm, but Deku's reflexes were hyper fast. So within a split second, Deku manifested a blade in his right hand and cut 3 of Shigaraki's fingers off, severing the connection that gave him the corruption ability of his arm. Started decaying the arm. Shigaraki yelled in pain, and the Nomu got up and started crawling over towards Deku. He grabbed Deku and threw him. This enraged Deku, and he went up to 70%, far past any of his limits. If he goes past 50, that's danger zone. It's like putting dark shadow in a dark room. He starts to lose control over his own actions. Deku blitzed at the Nomu and started severing body parts. Arms, legs, fingers. He took it all. And he knew that this wasn't any normal human being creature. It was a creature that was man-made. So he no longer had any guilt killing it. He just punched and punched and punched and punched till it was nothing more than just a splatter on the ground. Mr. Aizawa eventually had to close his eyes, so he began to regenerate. And Deku, seeing this, manifested 2 blades and started cutting at the head, slicing the brain into little bitty pieces till he cut out the part that gave it the regeneration power. Then, in his rage, he bolted towards Shigaraki again. But Kurogiri was able to grab Shigaraki before Deku was able to do any more damage to the boss. He got them out of there. Deku was at his wit's end. He was losing his damn mind. Everyone became an enemy to him. He ran and he started cutting down villains left and right. He was an unstoppable force of chaos and corruption. Everywhere he walked was lined with death. He no longer knew what he was doing. until Uraraka flew out of nowhere and grabbed onto Deku and begged for him to please snap out of it, that this was not him. This was the corruption quirk making him do these evil things. That the real Deku would never hurt anyone more than they needed to be hurt. That he would never hurt anyone beyond what was justice. He started to snap out of it. He started to look around and see the carnage that he left in his wake. Deku was appalled at his own actions. It made him sick to know that he hurt so many people. He didn't know what he was doing anymore. He just hurt others without regard for life and preservation. He cried and cried and cried, and Uraraka held him close and told him that she knew it wasn't him, that it was the other half deep within him that made him do all those horrible things, and that she didn't blame him, that she would never betray him or leave him behind, that she'd always be there to love him, that she'd always be there to take his side when things seemed to be so dark and rough. He held tight, and he didn't want to let her go. He thanked her for her kindness, for the honey of her words, for the gentleness of her voice. He thanked her with everything that he had. He didn't want to be a monster. He just wanted to be a hero. He wanted to save others with a smile like All Might. He wanted to be the kind of hero that destroyed the stereotype that if you have a quirk that appears to be evil, that means you'll be a villain or you'll be evil. He wanted to make people realize that a villain's quirk doesn't have to be villainous. It can be used for good if people will just allow it, will put away their prejudice or their preconditioned ideas of what right and wrong is. He wanted to be the hero that protected the weak, that made others feel safe in his presence. And he didn't want to lose Uraraka. He wanted to hold her tight and never let her go. He didn't want her to hate him. Eventually, All Might busted in and saw the carnage. And he saw that it all led to Deku. Everywhere that Deku went was death. All Might rushed over and asked Deku if he was alright. Deku cried. He apologized to All Might, saying that he didn't mean to do this. He never meant to hurt all those people. He didn't know what he did. He didn't know what got into him. All Might understood. Sometimes people do bad things for the right reason. And at that moment, he didn't deserve to be ridiculed for what he did. All Might understood. He hugged Deku and told him that he'd be alright. That he wouldn't let the press find out about this and ruin his chances to be a hero. He knew that Deku was a good boy. Deku begged All Might to get the Hero 13 and Aizawa to the doctor, to Recovery Girl. And All Might understood. He helped Deku get them to Recovery Girl. All the other students were okay. They were safe. But Deku was fighting some demons because of that. He was walking home with Uraraka, and she told him that she didn't blame him for what he did. In fact, that if it was up to her, she would have done the same thing to save the others. He was only doing the right thing. He shouldn't feel guilty for what he did. He said that he knew. He understood that, but he couldn't let go of the fact that he hurt so many people. That so many people had to suffer such injuries just so that others could be saved. Uraraka hugged him again and told him that he didn't have to worry, that it'd all be alright. She gave him a kiss on the forehead and told him that no matter what, she believes he did the right thing in that situation. This made him smile. He was happy by the fact that she believed in him so much. They parted ways and Deku went home, where when he got to his room, he collapsed on his bed and he went to sleep. That ends part 2. I hope you enjoyed this part. It was a bit slower, I think, but I think it did well. Let me know what you think. And remember, the shadows are watching.